Welcome, and thank you, Žygis, for having me. Nearly 4 years have passed since the fraudulent presidential election in Belarus inspired hundreds of thousands of ordinary citizens to take to the streets, demanding the Lukashenko regime listen to the will of the people. Since then, Belarusian authorities have done their utmost to destroy this pro-democracy movement, resorting to brutal tactics to silence civil society organizations, independent media, and all opposition voices. There are close to 1,500 political prisoners in Belarus today, many held incommunicado in deplorable conditions. This is about freedom versus tyranny. It's that simple. It's about a regime that won't let ordinary Belarusians communicate on the street in the Belarusian language, access foreign media sites on their smartphones, or utter even the slightest dissenting opinion. The Belarusian people want and deserve freedom, just like all human beings. In response to the increasing political repression, systemic human rights violations, and support for Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, the United States has worked closely with our allies and partners to bring the Lukashenko regime to account. Here at the OSCE, the United States and 37 other participating states invoked the Moscow mechanism to examine and expose Belarus's failure to abide by its OSCE human dimension commitments. At my urging, we've also established a group of friends of democratic Belarus at the OSCE, which now numbers more than 24 nations. This group of countries stands for the principles that once upon a time the Belarusian government itself subscribed to in the Charter of Paris: democracy, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. As someone who has participated in the Kalinausko Forum in the past, I know that these are the values that you believe in too. The task before us is to determine how best to support the Belarusian nation, its culture and language, and the brave civil society activists and independent media who still operate in Belarus. It's no secret that Minsk and Moscow are collaborating in their use of the tools of repression. It will take a coalition of well-intentioned countries and non-governmental actors to collaborate on strategies for how to empower the powerless, how to give agency back to the people who both want it and are entitled to it, and how to best harness those remarkable and inspiring voices like that of Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who continue to speak for those who cannot, but who want to live one day in a democratic, independent, sovereign Belarus. I also want to take a moment and acknowledge that in the midst of the tumult and threats to democratic institutions within Belarus, there has been critical support for democratic voices from outside the country. Namely, I want to express my gratitude to Lithuania for its support for the freedom of the Belarusian people, something it has done consistently for decades. Since 2020, since Lukashenko upended Belarusian elections, since the Kalinausko conference has been gathering, Lithuania has taken in about 62,000 people fleeing from Belarus. That's no small feat for a country of less than 3 million. It speaks not only to the collective humanity of the Lithuanian people, but to their knowledge of history and the desire to be on the right side of it. For that leadership, I say thank you, and I wish you all a fruitful and dynamic conference.